I'm Roz Stendahl, and the other night I was sketching. I did this sketch in about 8 minutes with a Sakura Pigma professional brush pen, and I started to paint it and thought, I'm going to videotape the rest of the painting. It's on Bao Hong paper, it's the artist quality line, and it's hot press paper. I used my Schminke pan watercolors. These are factory-made pans. And I used cobalt azure, I used transparent orange, I used gwyn gold, and I used phthalo turquoise. Later on, I used my warm red in addition to making my blacks richer and warmer. Oh, and I did use a little bit of cobalt teal in the cheek area. Before continuing on to create the black areas of the dog, I did some tests mixing some neutrals with colors that I most frequently use. I was trying to get a rich black that would reflect what the dog looked like to me, but also would allow me to have warm and cool variants throughout the dog's coat. And I did this with several mixes, and I decided to use phthalo turquoise, my warm red, and PB60. PB60 had not been mentioned in my earlier color list. For the rest of the video, it's mostly those three colors that I'm going to be mixing, and I'm going to be doing them in various saturations. I'm waiting for earlier layers to dry and then painting over them. What you can see off camera with the movement of my brush is I'm trying to make a big puddle of color to start as I lay in this background color. And I'm working with a size 10 long round. It has a long tip from the Velvet Touch line of Princeton brushes. I find this a very sturdy brush, but it also holds a lot of pigment, and I can work for a long time with it, but also gives me a point. I haven't worked with it for a while when I started doing this, and so I find the tip is getting a little bit away from me. I've been using mostly flats over the last couple of weeks, but you adapt and start to get your memory back of what it was like as you work on. I didn't do a voiceover as I worked on this painting, so there isn't any soundtrack. You can listen to your own music as you watch. As I'm editing, if something pops up, I probably will put in a little bit of voiceover if there's something that I want to mention. But this wasn't made as a teaching video, so I haven't got a spiel going on about what I'm doing. And the other thing that you should know is that I'm letting it go in real time because I find my students have found it most helpful when they can see real time and get a sense of how I'm judging how areas are drawing before I go back into them. But you can, of course, use the settings to speed up the video if this is too slow for your viewing. I picked up a Gray Matters 3/4 inch flat here to do some different types of strokes for a little bit. I've picked up an old brush with a fuzzy tip that I use for lifting color here, and it's just clean water, and then I apply the water to the paper and I mop up with the paper towel, which is a Bounty paper towel. And I use a roughed up brush because this can damage your quality brushes. There are special scrubbing brushes available from some companies, but I find that those are very hard on paper, and normally just a regular brush used like I'm doing here is sufficient. I haven't painted a lot of paintings on this paper previously, and so I'm still adapting to its various qualities, but I found in this particular painting that lifting was very easy, and I like that because, as you can see, I use a practice of putting on and taking off. And you can see I just made drops of water on the ear, and I don't notice that at first. That was more sloppiness on my part. And by the time I notice it, it has dissolved the paint in that area. And I leave that there because there are other papers that I work on where I actually do that, mostly with my ink wash drawings, and like those kinds of splotches. So it's just another testament to the easy lifting capabilities of this particular paper, even though I am using the turquoise as a staining color, so you wouldn't think it would be that easy to lift. But it's something to know about the paper. My vision issues combined with the fact that the dark tones of the paint I'm using are getting reflected by the overhead light have made it necessary for me to pick up the painting for a little while as I work on the eyes. The main thing I'm doing here in the eyes is trying to keep some of the underglow coming through and not be totally obscured by the darker paints that I'm putting on the surface of the eye, because there's shadow and there's the person who was taking the picture and those types of things reflected in the eye. And I've decided how much I want that to show and how dark I want the eye, but I still need to get that glow. And in order to do that, I have to pick the piece up so that I can be closer to my eyes and also not have to deal with the overhead reflection. I tried a bunch of different approaches in the eye that's on our right, and they didn't read true to me, and so I've gone with something that is more dark overall and reads as a dog eye that is slightly recessed would read. And at some point, you really do need to make decisions based on what is going to read true in the drawing and painting as opposed to what you might actually see in life. And you make approximations then and as one of my friends says, you cheat and give something that has the semblance of being realistic. And I hope that's what I've done here. So I gotta let this dry before I can take out the correct highlight line and have the right darkness. But otherwise, I'm done. So I'll fiddle with that and finish. And I'm leaving these 2 dots here. I dropped water there, and it dissolved before I noticed it, and I don't want to put more in. But I think this is a nice feature of this paper because I like to make drops. So it's a win-win. And this is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025, 7:40 p.m. Been working 43 minutes. And this sketch took me about 10, which I didn't tape. Less than 10. Very quick sketch. And it's a little sketchy dog. Dog from Sketchy. Here's a view of the finished painting that I've scanned, and you can see that it's got a range of the same 3 pigments made into neutrals going across the fur based on how the light is hitting the dog. And then we move into a slow crawl through the image so that you can see some of the detail. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you get some sketching done.